I'd like to just take a minute to talk to you guys about what it means to be a man, to be courageous and to be a man. Because there was something that we were designed to be, which has been totally stripped from us. And it's given us this false sense of knowledge and understanding about the way the world is supposed to work. But there is a truth that is built into us, hardwired into us, sewn into the fabric of our flesh and our spirit and our soul about how we were supposed to function and operate on this earth that we were never taught, that some of you have been deprived of your entire life. And it has caused us restlessness. It has caused us a sense of worthlessness and inability to do anything with passion and with vigor and with conviction. And today I want to talk about our identities as men. Ladies, I love y'all so much, and I'm so thankful that you exist. But today I need to kick some stinking teeth in for a little while, okay? Because my teeth have been kicked in pretty hard throughout my life. And recently, there's been some things that have happened to the men of courage that have crushed me. Men of great renown to me, mighty men of valor, Rob Skiba and Russ Dizdar. And I have spent the last few weeks reeling from that, as many others have. I've spent the last few weeks fighting against death in ways that I've never done in my life, fighting for resurrection, fighting for deliverance, from freedom, from oppression that has taken the heart of so many of us and has left people listless. But you know what? If there's anything that we can take courage of, it's what we were made to do. It's our identities of who we are and who our Messiah is. Because you know what? Yeshua is the most courageous of all men. And the last words of King David that he ever gave to his son were the same last words that were given by Moses to Joshua before he went into the promised land. And they're the same words that Yahuwah spoke to Joshua before he went forth to conquer. Here's what it is, okay? If you would for a second, shall we open up our swords of the covenant? All right, some of you guys have them. If you don't, sword check. I've got swords all over the place. Yikes, I cut my face earlier today with another sword, a saw. This is a scythe, we're gonna get there. It's the kuf, it's a letter in Hebrew that is literally for the reapers, right? We're going to talk about some reapers today and some of their harvest and some of their hard work that they've done and the good fruit that's hanging on the trees ready to be harvested. All right, you ready for this? Go to 1 Kings chapter 2. Go. You ready? I win. And the days of David drew near to die. And he commanded Shalomah, his son, Solomon, his son, saying, I am going the way of all the earth, and you shall be strong and be a man. What an awesome, what an awesome phrase to give your son. Be strong, be courageous, be a man, and guard the charge of Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to guard his laws, his commands, his right rulings, his witnesses, as it is written in the Torah of Moshe, so that you do wisely all that you do and wherever you turn, so that Yahuwah establishes his word which he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons guard their way to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their being, saying, there is not to cease a man of yours on the throne of Yisrael. David's last words that he could possibly speak to his son are invigorating him with the true, most powerful things that a son can ever hear from his father, which is what he is supposed to do. I was so unbelievably depressed this summer. I was frustrated and anxious and unbelievably discontent with my life because I was sitting around way too much. Like, so much so that I was just miserable. Like, you can go back and watch my videos like Lame Man Walking, where I'm just crushed in my body, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's because I was resting for far too long. Like, we're given this commandment, like this methodology about our life, which 6 days of the week we're supposed to labor diligently, hard. And then 1 day of the week, we are supposed to seriously rest hard. And we're commanded to guard this instruction. Like, the Father gave us this. He's like, 6 days, the seventh day you sit down. He showed us that as the most powerful working person on the face of the earth and in the heavens above. He showed us that when he walked on this earth. And then when his Father created it, he created a pattern for us all to live by. And men, you were made to work hard. And it wasn't until over the last couple months that I really started working super hard. Like, I've never worked so hard in my life as I have in the most recent time of my life. In the last 7 weeks, I have worked so many hours because I have a job of trying to bring out of the earth the fruitfulness that is in it. Like, I'm building fences, you guys, like I've never built fences in my life. And as I'm doing it, I'm suddenly realizing all of these stories about what Adam's real job was, what his function was in the garden, had to do so much more with than just going out and eating all the abundance of what was out there. He had to build infrastructure to create a way of protecting people. Like, he had a guardianship that he was given. The first instructions given to Adam, when you go back to Genesis chapter, what is it, 2 or 3? Like, when he was created and set in the garden. My last video was called By the Sweat of Your Face. Go back and watch that when I talk about the first instruction given to Adam, which is to obed, to toil, to work, to labor, to sweat his face into the dirt so that fruitfulness could come out of it, right? But then the second part of what's given to him is this whole concept of guardianship, all right? Genesis chapter 2, Bereshit chapter 2, verse 15. And Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it, that's Obed, and to guard it, Shamar. And Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. The first commandment given to man is to work hard to be a guardian, okay? Like the word shamar that you're given, shin, mem, resh, okay? When you hear that word, it should cause into you this concept of like a guardian on the wall. And you know what's hard is we grow up in a time where we don't have actual guys standing on the wall of the town that we live in, whose job it is to protect the people that live there. We don't have that today. Like, we live in the land of unwalled villages. But when I was in Afghanistan, I went to Kabul, Afghanistan, and I got picked up from the airport and driven to a compound. Like, it was a crazy street environment with people everywhere, dogs, goats, just totally wild stuff all over the place in the city of Kabul. And I got into this area, and we start turning down into the streets that kind of look like a neighborhood, but nothing like our neighborhoods, because it's just walls that are separated with other walls. And on the tops of them was broken glass that was embedded into the mortar. And I turn down into the street, and I go to pull into this driveway, and you get met with this huge gate, right? Like, kind of like roller doors, but different than the versions that we have for our garage doors, like thick and heavy and reinforced. And it goes up, you know? And there's a guard shack right in front of, sticking out into the road almost. There's a guard shack there. And that guy's job was to guard the house, to guard the courtyard. And he had an AK-47, like the original style AK-47, Soviet-issued Kalashnikov rifle, semi-auto and full stinking auto, son. Go ahead and spray and pray style. It was well-oiled, it was well cared for, and that guy knew how to hold it and carry it, and he had discipline when he greeted us at the door. He was the one who was the guardian. He's the shamar, right? He is the one who is outside on the wall, keeping watch so that once you entered in and crossed the threshold, and you entered into the threshold covenant, when you went into someone's house, that guy out there, his one entire job was to protect everybody on the inside from all the stuff that's going on out there. And I got to witness that in the flesh. And you know what happened when the gate closed? That guy didn't follow us in. He stayed out there on the wall alone. We all went inside. We were welcomed into a beautiful courtyard, a house that was built up in kind of a square shape. There was trees and fruit trees all over that place. There was like a pasture in the middle of it and chickens running around everywhere. And we were greeted with hospitality and milk and eggs and bread, naan, sweet naan. Oh my gosh, I love naan. But there was this warmth and this environment of life. Vitality, hospitality. They had a tailor brought in to make clothes and garments for us. Like, we didn't have to pay for any of this. It was the way they did life over there. I got to experience shamar. Because when I was outside that wall, we took guards with us. We took shamars with us on the road. We needed those guys wherever we went. And because they were in the car, they were doing their job, I had a different frame of mind. And you know what? There's a lot of you guys who have been given the gift of peace of mind for many years of your life because there's been the shamars on the wall. You had the guardians on the wall. You've had those guardians who are out there on the front line sacrificing their lives so that you could eat and sleep and rest in peace, so that you could study and learn because of their hard work out there. I was one of those digesters, those consumers who was given knowledge and understanding and wisdom because other men had diligently poured their lives into them. Rob Skiba was one of those guys. He gave me a sword. This book right here, Genesis and the synchronized, biblically endorsed extra biblical text. Y'all, this was one of the most instrumental books in my life because there's portions of our scriptures, you guys, that have been dissected out of it, sincerely. Like, if you go back and look at, I know some of you are diehard King James only version people. I understand where you're at on that. But if you're going to be that way, go back to the 1611 and look at how many scriptures are in the original 1611. Closer to 80-something. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason. Because there's all this other information that was included for our learning and knowledge and understanding about how the systems of the world operate that have been ripped out of our scriptures, sincerely ripped out of our scriptures, like the book of Jubilees, you guys. I can't encourage you enough. Take some time out of your life and study what has been going on from the beginning. It will transform you and give you a way of seeing and understanding the world in such a passionate and beautiful way. Like the book of Yashar is amazing. And it has this depth of description about Abraham and his life and the trials that he went through, and Joseph and his life and the things that he experienced, that fills in so much more of the story that you can finally start to relate to human beings in a way that sometimes in the scriptures that we've been given, we miss it. We miss it. Rob Skiba labored for years and years and years of his life. And you know what? I spent a weekend with his wife and his family, and I got to labor for him. I got to labor alongside him, trying to seek the Father's favor to see that man be raised from the dead. I've never been so honored to be anywhere in my life than to be in the room with that man and with his family, petitioning the Father to do the impossible. Like, I sweated and I cried and I groaned and I watched his wife ache and believe and rejoice and celebrate. And I saw other people diligently petition the Father for a miracle to take place in their lives. And you know what? After days of that, after being up all through the night, after guarding over his body and trying to carry it over the threshold of his house, I was left with this feeling when I drove away after not seeing the resurrection, with this stabbing pain of doubt in my head of wondering, was it because of something we did or did not do? Like, should I have gone to Rob Skiba's side when he was back in the hospital? How about when he was still on the front line? How many times did Rob Skiba get reinforcements? How many times did Russ Dizdar get reinforcements? How many times have the front liners had backup? Like, how often have you physically gone out of your way to do anything you can to help the front liners? You all should be them. We don't want to be out there alone on the walls, but you know what? We will, because that's what we've been given a call to do. We are called to go out there and to work by the sweat of our faces, men, to work courageously, to be valiant warriors for his kingdom. This is the words of Joshua. He watches Moses die. Like, to walk up a mountain, the man whose face shone with the presence of Yahuwah. He saw Yahuwah face to face. Joshua was on the mountain. He saw the sapphire stones in his hands. He saw the fingerprints of the Father on the stone of the commandments. Like, Joshua has seen more miracles in his life than we can even start to understand. And so too have so many of you, because if you have any regard for this scripture as precious and as valuable, it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle that you have any love for the Father to begin with, because there is a world of destruction that has been created out there by that dragon to try to lead you astray. And yet some of you have been shaken from your slumber. And you know who did it? Many of the men and women who have been the shamar, the guardians. And it is such a miracle that any of them labored so steadfastly without reinforcements. But you know what? They took courage in these words. Joshua, chapter 1. This is the Hallelujah scriptures I'm reading from. They render it Yahushua. So if you guys wonder why I'm saying it, that's why they render it that way. And it came to be after the death of Moshe, the servant of Yahuwah, that Yahuwah spoke to Yahushua, the son of Nun, the assistant of Moshe, saying, Moshe, my servant, is dead. So now, arise, pass over this Yarden, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the children of Yisrael. Every place on which the sole of your foot shall tread, I have given you, as I spoke to Moshe, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river of Parath, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea towards the going down of the sun is your border. No man is going to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moshe, so I am with you. I do not fail you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you are to let this people inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous to guard, to do according to all the Torah, which Moshe my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you act wisely wherever you go. Do not let this book of the Torah depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you guard to do according to all that is written in it. For then you shall make your way prosperous and act wisely. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged, for Yahuwah your Elohim is with you wherever you go. There's not exclamation points in Hebrew, but you know ways they did that was by repeating themselves. Yahuwah repeats himself 4 times in this one chapter about being strong and being courageous. This is him literally beating an identity into his son. He is impressing upon him an identity about what it is that's going to make him persevere. These are what those words actually mean. Here's a guy who labored on the wall for a long time. ERIK BISSEL, that's the guy who does these charts over here, y'all. ERIKtology.net, I think, or Step of the Stars.net. is his website. Just look it up. ERIK BISSEL, Paleo Hebrew. That's a guy who labored on the wall and still labors on the wall religiously, diligently, because he wants people to understand the Father's language. And that's incredibly important because, you know, John chapter 7, I got to go there real quick before I get there. Let's talk about our Messiahs, how the Messiah became strong and courageous, how he became mighty. He studied and knew the Father's words. This is John chapter 7. And after this, Yeshua was walking in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Yehuda, because the Yahudim were seeking to kill him. And the festival of the Yahudim was near, the festival of Sukkot. Keep the feasts. So his brothers said to him, get away from here and go into Yehuda, so that your Talmudim also see the works that you are doing. For no one acts in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For even his brothers did not believe in him. Some of you have felt some of that in your life. You start to come into this walk, you start to become set apart, and you become estranged to the world and to the friends and the family and the systems of religion that you may have been a part of before, and you start to walk on a peculiar path. You become strange and funky to the people around you. You start to smell different, act different, look different, think different, eat different, and it makes you kadosh, set apart. Yeshua is that. He's becoming more and more set apart from the families and the lifestyle that he used to live, and it's becoming more and more noticeable. And his brothers didn't believe him. His mother didn't believe him. His mother, like Mary, the virgin, born of the Virgin Mary, started doubting him, was trying to drag him out of his ministry because they were calling him crazy. You guys have experienced that. Those forerunners, y'all, the guardians on the wall, experienced that on a scale that you can't even start to comprehend. They experienced it to such a level of persecution. Like, it's hard to have normal relationships and friendships oftentimes when you have any kind of public platform, because the persecution that you suffer by the people that are supposedly in a similar walk from you becomes relentless, exhausting. Like, I spoke at a memorial service online with Take on the World TV last week about my memories with Rob Skiba. And the first time I ever spoke at a conference, he and Sheila came in the room, and my message predominantly that day was be courageous and persevere and drive on. Like a good soldier, when you get weary, has a battle buddy who comes alongside him and kicks him in the rear end with verbal encouragement, we'll say. Sometimes he physically just carries you on with his words. Suck it up and drive on. Carry on. Like, yeah, you're tired, so are we all. Like, some of you guys think that you are weary and exhausted. I guarantee you today, people that are far more tired than you. There's some moms out there who could crush us with their level of exhaustion. You good moms, I love you all so much. Thank you for your steadfast sacrifices that you give to your children. There's some men out there who are so fatigued they can't even stand on their feet. And you know what? They're being obedient. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're living in obedience to their Father. And he loves to see his children work hard, because then he will pay us our wages. He will always reward each of us according to our works. He's going to bring his rewards with him. He's going to come and pay us each what we're due, some for good and some for great evil, but he will pay each of us accordingly. This is what Yeshua says to them. And Yeshua said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always ready. It is impossible for the world to hate you, but it hates me because I bear witness of it, that its works are wicked. You go up to this festival. I am not yet going up to this festival, for my time has not yet been filled." And having said this to them, he stayed in Galilee. But when his brothers had gone up to the festival, then he also went up, not openly, but as it were in secret. The Yahudim therefore were seeking him at the festival and said, "Where is he?" And there was much grumbling about him among the crowd. Some were saying, "He is good." But others were saying, "No, he is leading the crowd astray." Grumbling Israelites, textbook. However, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Yahudim, the Jews. They were afraid of the public scourging, public opinion, what people thought of them. This is the fear of men that has gotten into the hearts of people. The fear of men got into the heart of King Saul, which is why he didn't slaughter the Amalekites like he was supposed to. Instead, he lost the kingdom because his fear of men pervaded his soul. You want to be a guardian? You want to be an obedient servant to the Father? The first thing he is going to put you through, the fires of tribulation that he tends to do, is to give you the scourge and the testing of public opinion. Like, he will give that to you. If any of you are debating whether or not you should be pursuing the kingdom with radical intensity, all in for the sake of the truths that you have found, consider the cost. No man starts to build a building, Yeshua said, before sitting down and figuring out the cost of what it's given me. If you're going to fight a war, you better figure out how many troops you're going to need in order to fight that war, the supplies and the infrastructure. All of those kind of calculations must be calculated before you make that determination. But some of you guys, you've been sitting around consuming for way too long, and it's time for you to go work diligently with your hands and to count the costs that the fear of men is going to be one of the first things that needs to die in you. That's why he says, Tirra, do not fear. I put out a video maybe a year ago that was called Tirra, murdering idols, and why you got to murder your idols. Most of you have a fear of men, fear of women, fear of what others think of you. And if you can let that die, the Father will resurrect in you a heart of boldness and of courage. And that is super exciting for the people around you. Not necessarily the ones who are pissed off because you've changed kingdoms and you've betrayed them, but because people love to see men and women of conviction. It's highly infectious. It's extremely dangerous. And about the middle of the festival of Sukkot, Yeshua went up into the Mikdash, that's the tabernacle or the temple, and he was teaching, front line in it. And the Yahudim were marveling, saying, "How does this man know letters, not having learned?" Letters, y'all. That's the Paleo Hebrew. Like the letters. The letters. He taught letters. Who taught Yeshua the letters? How did he learn to become literate? Does that make sense? How did he learn to be a literate man when he was not professionally schooled, right? Rabbi Saul, he was professionally schooled by like the best of the best of the best. Yes, sir. He was that guy. Yeshua was not. And that's why people are totally befuddled by him. And you know what's so beautiful? ERIK BISSEL was one of those people for me who was trained and schooled in the letters, not by the academic communities, but instead by authenticity of seeking the scripture, studying for himself, and working diligently to read dictionaries. This is Ernest Klein's etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language for English readers. This man worked diligently to put together descriptions and definitions of words in all the places of where they come from, and I'm getting to eat the fruit of that. Yeshua was instantly recognized as a totally different kind of teacher because he knew and understood the words of his Father. If you guys will diligently seek to understand the words of your Father, it will empower you to go boldly and to be a guardian on the wall. Check this out. There it is. The word shamar, to watch over, to observe, to keep, to be protected, to carefully strain, and to filter. Okay? That guy who was sitting outside of that compound was carefully filtering and straining through anybody that was supposed to be in there. Our last night that we were there was a missile attack on Kabul, and it exploded windows and the houses nearby. That guy's job was to protect everybody that was in that vehicle and in that compound. And he did it the entire time we were there. I laid down to sleep in peace because I knew there was a good guardian on the wall. That man was trained and educated and knew how to filter everything out. When I go treasure hunting, you guys, I come out of those places, like I went to this crystal mine in Hot Springs, Arkansas. No, it wasn't right there. It was nearby. I went to a crystal mine out there where I dug crystals out of the earth that are just like my dream. I told Chelsea what I've wanted to do my entire life is find crystals like this. Fossils, you know, like these giant rib bones. I've wanted to do this stuff my entire life. But when I go looking for treasures like this, I'll show you guys these beautiful ones, right? Because people are like, wow, that's so nice. I filter through hundreds and hundreds of pounds of other stuff in order to get there. That's being a guardian. That was Adam's first job, was to filter through the good things, the bad things. He was supposed to do the one thing in there, was to filter out the one potential source of danger that was in that garden, which was the eating from a tree of knowledge and good and evil, which was to disobey his father's instructions. That was the one thing he was not to do. And that's the one thing he was found guilty of at the end of it. And a curse was laid on all of us. But you know what? If we regard the Father's words as valuable and as precious again, is if we study his languages and we learn his words, it will give us such a boldness of having unbelievable convictions in our life. Like, the words that Joshua is given makes him so set apart and makes him so distinctly different that Joshua and Caleb are the only two guys who make it into the promised land. Not Moses, not Aaron, not Miriam, none of the generations of the people who saw the Red Sea part. Only the children, Joshua and Caleb, got to go into the land because they guarded fiercely the words of Elohim, the promises that he had given them. They were courageous and they were confident because they had at their foundation an understanding of these words. This is what they came to know to be the truth. When Yahshua is given those instructions by the Father, this is what being strong and courageous means. To perform with difficulty, was adopted, endeavored, and was determined. He became strong, and he was encouraged and strengthened. That's what the Father has for men. Your identity is to do that to other people, that the people that are around you are sincerely transformed by being in your presence. Rahab Skiba was that for me. Russ Dizdar was that for me. So much so that they were some of the first people I talk about in my book as being major capital I influencers of my life, because they were men who were guardians on the wall. And you know what? To me, because they were alive, I had conviction in my life. I had boldness in my life that I could see that the Father would preserve and protect his people. And you know what happened? The enemy made a strategic move in trying to slay off some of the frontliners. And he's trying to take out a lot of them, y'all. And you know what? You need to not be afraid. Seriously. Tirra. Do not be afraid. Be courageous. What is it for the Father to preserve any of us? And what's it for the Father to give permission to allow the enemy to take a life? The enemy is a thief and a robber, but you know what? Our Father only gives. He gives good gifts to his children. That's literally what the word Nathan means. Give, given. Every time you're reading in Joshua 1 where it says, give you the land, he's saying Nathan, Nathan, Nathan. My identity is wrapped up in being a giver. You guys have a name. I put out a video that was called, What's Your Name? And how critically important it is for you to study from his Hebrew what your name means, what your identity is. Learn your identity as an Israelite, as a child of the King, whether by blood or by belief. You get the opportunity to be a man like Joshua, to be given the kingdom of Elohim so that everywhere where the foot of the sole of your shoe would tread, you can be confident that he goes with you. You guys don't need to be caught up in being afraid of what's coming. Stop living your lives in trepidation and fear. Go and live valiantly. Go and be courageous. Plant fields, raise animals, build fences, sweat your face into the earth. Go work harder than our enemies so that we can be found peacefully filled with confidence of knowing our Creator is coming to rescue and save us. I love you all so much. Live valiantly every single day of your life. The days may be evil, but hear me. You were born for such a time as this. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.